yeah, a week after we got that diagnosis, you just decided to start walking. You're like I didn't know what was going on. And that's always been like a thing with me, I guess, is that like somebody tells me I can't do something and I'm like, no, I'm going to do it.
You are now tuning in to the Relentless Project. Real people, real stories, real life.
All right, so we're here. I'm Ish,
Yeah.
and I'm here with Andy
Yeah.
on the Relentless Project. So I'm actually, I've kind of known a little bit about your story, and then you and Warren posted this like 6-minute like teaser video on your thing, and it left me with like a lot of questions. I was like, dude, like I want to know more, and I was like, what better place to talk about it than on a Relentless Project? Because I don't know if you've heard some of our episodes. It's like it focuses on resilience, personal development, the stories of people who overcome obstacles, and I'd say you fit that mold pretty well. Well, you're like a prime example of someone who embodies kind of like the spirit of the show, you know. So on that, tell us a little bit about your the start of your story, young Andy.
Yeah. So I'll start right at the beginning. So just like almost to explain like what cerebral palsy is it's usually caused by oxygen deprivation at the time of birth. So just some birth complications and stuff like that. My parents weren't aware of it until I was like between a year and 18 months old, and I was having trouble crawling and walking because I was crawling, dragging my right leg. Trying to walk, drag my right leg, my arm kind of like my right arm would like just be limp hanging there and not really using it. And I think around when I was like 2 or 3, got like MRIs, CAT scans, bunch of brain scans to see what was going on with that because they were worried. They were actually worried. I remember my mom telling me this. They were worried like I had like, because they didn't know like the dragging or the limpness before. They were worried I had like a stroke or something because they had no idea.
Yeah, I mean, I guess that could resemble kind of like.
Right. So got diagnosed with CP right around then. I remember they actually did, a doctor before I got the CAT scans told my parents that it's probably CP. He might never walk because I walked late. Like I was thinking it was between about 18 months and 2 years old when I started walking. And I remember my dad telling me this. He was like, yeah, a week after we got that diagnosis, you just decided to start walking. Like I didn't know what was going on. And that's always been like a thing with me, I guess, is that like somebody tells me I can't do something and I'm like, no, I'm going to do it.
Watch.
I'm going to do it. So from there, just normal kid, just doing whatever. Played all sorts of sports growing up. Baseball, soccer, started playing football in middle school as well. And then I remember in 7th grade, we had a basketball unit in gym class, and I was terrible. Missed every free throw, every bat, like everything. I couldn't catch the ball. I couldn't pass the ball. Couldn't do anything. And we had our middle school basketball team tryouts. And I remember some kid in class, he was like, dude, you shouldn't even try out. You're definitely not making any of the you're not making. We had basketball super popular in my school. So we had 2 middle school teams, an A team and B team. And this kid was like, you're not even making the B team. You're definitely not making it.
Fighting words.
Yeah,
bro.
and I was like a little bit angry. But then, and it was like I was angry, but it was like I knew he was right. Like I knew there was no chance because the super popular. There were going to be tryouts. There were going to be cuts.
In middle school?
Oh yeah, right. And then right after that, the gym teacher walks out of his office into the locker room, and he tells us that, hey, we have a middle school wrestling team. No one came to practice on the first day yesterday. The coach asked me to announce it to the gym classes that we need wrestlers or we're not going to have a season this year. And I'm like, wrestling. And I remember my dad that previous summer woke me up at like 1:30 in the morning because he's like, you got to watch this wrestling match. The American wrestler, he's a huge underdog. He might win the gold medal. And it was Rulon Gardner going against Alexander Karelin, who at the time, I think he was 13-0 between Olympic and world championships in Greco, Russian wrestler, one of the greatest Russian heavyweights of all time. And Rulon Gardner, like basically unknown name at the time, beat him for the gold medal in Greco. Huge underdog. And I was like, and he was like a Nebraska corn-fed farmer boy.
Big boy, strong.
Big boy. But he didn't look like an athlete, didn't look like an athlete in the way Karelin did. Karelin looks like a freaking statue. Like he's just like monster. He looks like Ivan Drago.
He looks like he's gonna win.
He looks like he's gonna win. And
Yeah.
they were talking about it before the match. Like posted some of his highlights on NBC and stuff like that. And it was like, wow, this guy's a monster. And I remember Gardner won, and I'm like, you know what? If he can wrestle, I can wrestle. Not knowing everything that went into it at the time. And I came home from school that day, and I was like, Dad, I'm gonna try out the wrestling team. And my dad's like, are you sure about that? And he's like, listen, I was a swimmer in high school, and I fought. I got a lot of fights, and my dad was a scrapper growing up, Army brat. Grew up in Fort Benning, Georgia.
Good place,
right?
Good place,
right?
I know it. I know a little too well.
Yeah. My grandpa was a ranger school instructor. So he took my dad and my uncle. They spent every summer at ranger camp growing up when they were little kids. So my dad was a maniac. But and he was like, listen, the only kids I wouldn't fight in school were the wrestlers. Those kids are the toughest of the tough. He's like, you're gonna go through it if you want to do this. He's like, I'm not gonna tell you no, but you're gonna go through it. And I found out later my mom was really upset because he wouldn't tell me no. She was like so worried about me getting hurt. So I started wrestling. 7th grade year, went 0-12, lost every match, and I was like, I don't know. I don't know if this is for me. And it was a short season. Go through the summer, come back in the fall. We got a new coach who was also my middle school football coach, and after football season ended in 8th grade, he was like, Andy, you're wrestling again this year, right? And I'm like, I don't know, maybe. He's like, no, you got to wrestle. So I wrestled in 8th grade, start winning some matches, and did a little better. Not great. Still sub 500. I think it was like 4 and 5 or something like that. A little less matches, but won some matches. And then just kept going from there. But that a little bit of success in 8th grade, like not great, a little bit of success got me hooked from there. Then in 9th grade, I actually won my wrestle off for my varsity starting spot. 103 pounds, little guy still at the time.
You were 103 pounds.
Yeah, so in high school, freshman year I wrestled 103, sophomore year I wrestled 112, junior year I wrestled 119, and senior year I wrestled 125. And we'll get to this later, but then in college I wrestled 133 and 141. So I was the starting varsity 103 pounder, right back to square one, because I'm wrestling against kids that at this point I had 2.5 years experience. I'm wrestling kids at this point, like they were like when you had Mike Wilkins on, and he talked about how he started wrestling before he could even remember at 4 years old.
Yeah,
Those were the kids I was wrestling every match now. So I was just getting worked. I wrestled like
You heard what he said about you on the show?
Yeah.
Yeah, we're gonna set something.
Oh, we'll talk about that. We'll talk about dude. Mike's awesome. Yeah. No, we'll talk about that. No, I want to talk about him a lot too, because him and Warren have done so much for me. But after that, it was like had a little bit of success at the end of the season. I was like, I'm hooked, and then I started wrestling year round, starting 9th grade. Kept wrestling. Didn't do terribly. Didn't do great. But I was hooked, and I was going to wrestling camps every summer, doing off-season club, and one of the biggest things that I think I struggled with at the time was I had a hard time seeing myself as from a subjective perspective. Like I was comparing myself to every other wrestler. I'm going to all these camps in the summer, going to club, seeing all these other kids I'm practicing with. They're like winning state titles, placing at states. And I'm like, I'm going to be a state champion. I'm going to wrestle in college. I'm going to be state champion and wrestle in college. And not like, and I don't want to say like I was too ambitious with my goals, but I let the get to me too much in that like I became almost like weighed down with them. Like I was putting too much pressure on myself.
You were focused on the end game
instead of the journey, instead of the process, instead of development. I was too focused on the end game, and it put too much weight on my shoulders. And I remember going in every match super nervous, like super nervous all the time, super nervous. And by the end of my senior year, I basically was like burnt out. And I was just like, I'm gonna be done wrestling after this. And it was funny. It was a couple weeks before the end of my season. I was wrestling freestyle, wrestling at my freestyle club, getting ready for like the end of the year. Just doing like extra tune-up practices and stuff. And one of my club coaches, Eric Canoodla, he was the head coach at a junior college, a community college in Buffalo, Niagara Community College. Perennial top 10.
This small world, actually. No, that's
really
cool. Yeah.
Oh yeah. So NCCC is a perennial top 10 wrestling program in the country for JUCO. Like kids go there that maybe academically aren't ready for Division I yet to like stay sharp and then transfer to Division I, or maybe they didn't have their priorities in order their first semester freshman year, and they failed out of a Division I school. They go back there to keep wrestling, stuff like that. And he asked me, he's like, "Hey, do you have any plans to wrestle in college? Like, I love how hard you work. You're an inspiration to the rest of the team and stuff like that." I'm like, maybe, I don't know. And then my big thing was like, my big thing. I remember, I was also my freestyle Greco club was located at the University of Buffalo. And I remember talking to one of the coaches there, and I was asking him, I remember talking to him in like 10th or 11th grade, asking him about like walking out at UB, because I knew, I'm like, they're only going to offer like a kid that won a state title or placed top 3 in the states. I know they're not going to offer me any money, but I'd like to get the chance to walk on. And he's like, "Listen, man, like, I love how hard you," I remember this UB coach was telling me, he's like, "Listen, man, I love how hard you work. You're an inspiration to all the kids here." But he's like, "At Division I, you're going to be like a mascot. Like, you're not going to do well." And I was like, okay, you know what? I don't really want to wrestle in college just to be like the college's Rudy, you know? Like, I don't want to like just be like a feel-good story. Like, I want to be a college wrestler. And Coach K, we called Eric Canoodla, he told me, he's like, "Listen, you're not just going to be like a feel-good story. You're going to be like, you're going to wrestle. You're going to, if you don't start, I'm still going to send you to open tournaments, and you're going to work hard. Like, I'm going to treat you like everyone else." And I'm like, all right. Maybe. I don't know. I'll think about it. And then I remember my last match, my senior year. If I won the match, I would be going to the state qualifiers. If I lost, my season was over. I ended up losing 8-7. And after the other kid got his hand raised, ran over to the other kid's coach, shook his hand, got my stuff from my coaches, and I ran back to the hallway, and I just broke down, started crying, because I was like, it's all over.
Did you think that was your last?
I thought that was my last match ever. So I was like, you know what? Let me call Coach K on Monday. And I called him, like, yeah, can I come to NTRP? And he's like, yeah. He's like, let's schedule a time for me to bring you and your parents down, meet the athletic director. I'll show you around. We'll get you all set up to go. So I did that. And it was funny because like at the time, like I did okay on the ACTs and SATs and stuff like that. At the time, I was looking to just go to like 4-year school somewhere. And I was thinking like, oh, I'm going to become a high school history teacher and coach wrestling because I want to be a wrestling coach, but they don't pay people enough just to be a wrestling coach. And I remember a couple people were like, a couple of my teachers and stuff, they're like, "Why are you going to a community college?" Like, I'm like, "I'm going to wrestle." Like, they're like, "You have good enough grades to go somewhere else." I'm like, "Yeah, I hate school though." Like I'm like, I'm going to wrestle in the class, and I'm going to wrestle. I'm going to save money, and I know the classes are going to be easier my freshman and sophomore year when I don't really care about school anyways. So I wrestled there 2 years. I had some studs ahead of me on the lineup both seasons. My freshman year, I had Josh Lang, returning All-American at 133 pounds. Didn't even give me the chance to wrestle off against him because like they were like, "Yeah, you're not gonna do well." Like, we're going to send you some open tournaments. You're going to go wrestle. I actually certified at 125, but they didn't want me cutting all the way to 125 for just open tournaments. So wrestled at 33 pounds. Didn't do great because college wrestling's another animal.
It's an animal.
It's another animal. I went winless, but I was like, you know what? This is what I set my life to do. This is what I'm going to do. And I lost bad a lot.
So the theme was you lost in high school.
Yeah.
You lost in your tournaments.
Yep.
What kept that thing alive of like, this is what I want to do?
So what it was I lost freshman year. I lost a lot. Sophomore year, I started doing better. Junior year, I started better. Senior year, I started doing. It was like that little bit of success kept me going.
That taste
and what it was my freshman year of college, I lost bad a lot, but I improved every match, and I was like, I know it's gonna happen. And then sophomore year, same thing. Lost every match. Then we had like a exchange program with a college in Hamilton, Ontario, where they'd come do one of our tournaments, and then we'd send some wrestlers to go do one of their freestyle tournaments. And I go there, and I won a match. I placed at the tournament. I for some reason I was better at freestyle than folk style. I don't know why. Freestyle I think is actually a lot harder personally. Like I guess. And I was very good at I don't want to say comparatively I was very good at Greco. I don't want to say I was a great Greco wrestler, but I was better at Greco than I was at freestyle or folk style. Every summer, my coach had us do what was called the Empire State Games, where it's like the Olympics of New York, and there was like a high school division and there's a senior division for adults, and he'd always make us go do the senior division and stuff like that. And I'd always win the qualifiers, so I did have success. It was like fleeting success. It was a little bit of success, but it was enough to like give me a taste of it, so I wanted to keep going. And I was thinking about transferring to a school with a wrestling program to continue wrestling. And some things just didn't work out. I ended up at this school in Ohio, in Steubenville, that was supposed to start a wrestling program, but the administration nixed it at the last possible minute, where I was already there. Like I found out the wrestling program was not going to happen the day after I signed my loan papers. So I was like, all right, I got to find something else to do. I played rugby for a year, and it was all right. I liked it. I had fun, but it was like, it wasn't like serious. It wasn't,
something was missing.
It was something was missing. And then what was funny is me and one of my roommates, we went to Buffalo Wild Wings to watch UFC fights, which we would always do because I thought UFC was cool because my high school coach was teammates at N-Trip actually with Rashad Evans, UFC champion, I started watching UFC when he was in the Ultimate Fighter. So I started watching and I was hooked after that. So I watched UFC all the time. And the headliner of this pay-per-view was Dan Henderson versus Shogun Rua. And it was like, if you haven't seen that fight, it's one of the all-time greatest, like, just brawl fights. Like,
that's your top brawl?
It's like, I don't know if it's everyone's top dog, but that's mine. And it was the bloodiest, most brutal fight I've ever seen. Like they fought until like like in the fifth round, I was like, one of these guys is gonna die, like just fall over. Like they're like,
you just seen Sean Strickland. He said the other day, he's like, I will find happiness if I kill someone in the game or something. I'm like, dude's wild.
I think he's playing that up a little bit personally. I hope so. But I saw that fight and I was like, and I realized I was like, dude, that's so awesome. I want to do that. And my friends were like, you want to do that? And I realized like, oh, something's different about me. So I'm like, you know what? All right, I'm gonna do this. And I started looking at gyms and stuff like that. And I found one nearby me, and it was funny. I actually found one nearby me. It was this MMA gym in Robinson. It's gone through a couple of iterations. Mike talked about it a little bit. Fight Club Pittsburgh. At the time, now it's owned by Kama Worthy. He calls it the Academy. He has a lot of good fighters out of there and stuff too. But what drew me to it was they were advertising that they had Renzo Gracie Jiu-Jitsu. And the reason is that I looked up a couple months before that, I was like, you know what? One of my roommates was like, let's start jiu-jitsu. It looks really cool. He's like, I'm not trying to fight MMA, but I want to do something like with MMA. Let's start jiu-jitsu. And we looked at this school, this other local school, and we went there. And I remember talking to the guy, and he was like, "Oh, you're a wrestler? We got a lot of bad habits to break you out of." And I was like thinking to myself, like, that doesn't sound right. Like, I'm like thinking to myself, I'm like, every UFC champ I know wrestled at the time. Like, this is like 2012. Every UFC champ was a former wrestler, basically, and they all did jiu-jitsu. And I'm like, that doesn't make any sense. And I looked up wrestling and jiu-jitsu, and what was crazy was the first name that came up, and it was probably just based on like locality, was Warren. And I was like, wait,
that
what?
guy, huh?
I was like, this guy does. And then I looked him up. I'm like, oh, he does. But then I looked up his school, and I was like, oh, Lawrenceville. And it was like too far away from me. It was like, well, it was too far away from me at the time in my head, which is funny as I get further on.
Because now it's all relative.
Now it's all relative, right? And I was like, oh, okay, I gotta train with him. And I was like, it's too far away. And so I look up this other place. So I'm looking up like MMA gyms near me. I'm like, oh, Warren teaches there. Okay, I'm gonna go there. And it was funny because like I get there, and like the management at the time, they were kind of weird. Like I asked them about the jiu-jitsu program, and they almost like dismissive of it. They're like, oh, well, if you're trying to do MMA, just do our MMA classes. Like, you don't need to do gi stuff, you know? I'm like, all right, you guys know, I guess. And then I started there doing like MMA classes. Like my first ever MMA class was with Mark Cherico, Mike mentioned on the podcast and stuff like that. And I was doing this for a couple months, and I forget what happened. I forget how this happened, but like we got in like some conversation about college wrestling, and Mike was there getting ready to spar, and he was like, wait, he overheard me like talking to somebody about the college NCAA is coming up in like end of March. And he's like, wait, how do you know so much about college wrestling? I'm like, oh, I wrestled for 2 years in college. He's like, really? He's like, why the fuck aren't you doing my jiu-jitsu classes? I'm like, I don't really do gi. I'm trying to fight MMA. He's like, dude, that's stupid. He's like, what are you gonna do when you're done fighting MMA? Are you just gonna sit around and be fat and lazy and just be miserable? And he's like, jiu-jitsu is the golf for MMA, for retired MMA fighters. Do jiu-jitsu. And I'm like, all right, fine. So I'm like, I go out to the front desk. I'm like, here, let me buy a gi. I'm gonna start jiu-jitsu next week. And then I started doing it. And what was funny was my first actual class in the gi, Warren forgot his belt. So he's just wearing he forgot his belt.
I fucking hate when people do that shit.
He forgot his belt in Costa Rica, so he put a white belt on. So I walk out to class, I'm like, what is this white belt teaching all these people? Okay, this is weird, but whatever. Mike told me to start jiu-jitsu. Fine, I don't know who this guy is, this white belt that's teaching and stuff like that. And it was funny because like I mean, you've rolled with like former wrestlers.
Yeah, I hate it.
Yeah, it sucks, right?
I hate it.
So like, and what was funny is like, it was like I knew like I had like an experience advantage there, but I was like, oh, MMA is so much different. I've seen wrestlers get submitted and get beat up in MMA, so like these people should. And I didn't realize like it was funny like the way this gym marketed themselves, they made it sound like everybody there was trying to be a fighter. It was just like us here. Most people just coming in train,
hobbyists,
right? So I'm going against these accountants and teachers, like they're like trying to be fighters, and I'm just like I'm winning rounds in this like MMA class and stuff like that. So I'm thinking I'm getting good, right? And then what was funny is then it was like the first class, it was an odd number, and I'm like so, and then like Warren saw like my ears were better than they are now with my cauliflower ear, but like I still had a little bit of cauliflower. And Warren's like, oh, did you wrestle? I'm like, yeah, a little bit. I wrestled at high school, 2 years of JUCO. He's like, oh, okay, awesome. Here's like, I'll partner up with you. And I'm like, okay, cool. I'm gonna partner up with this no stripe white belt, and he just destroys me because
I can't even imagine. Yeah.
And I'm going, I'm like, maybe I suck
now.
Maybe I suck. And then what was funny is at the end of class, he gives me 2 stripes, what was funny is afterwards I found out, he just must have forgot to tell me because I didn't know about this for almost 5 years later. He has this like, not policy, but he tries to if you wrestled in college, you start out at 2 or 3 stripes because it's unfair to everybody else that's a beginner to call you like a brand new person.
Yeah.
So-
Because you have experience in the
like
grappling
if you're a
field,
Division One, if you're a Division One wrestler, you're a 3-stripe white belt right up from your first class, and you're gonna jump right into open mats and intermediates. Good luck with those blue belts because you can handle it. Even though you have no submission defense, good luck.
And that's what I want to talk about. When that's what I love like about new wrestlers starting jiu-jitsu. It's like their neck is always open.
Dude, no, I
Their
got guillotined and triangled so much. Like, and what's funny is, so then later that week I come in and do my first class with Mike, and oh, he's a blue belt, and like he's good, but he's only a blue belt. Like I rolled with this black belt on Monday, and he beat me up pretty good. And I was like thinking, I'm like, oh, I'm gonna take it to him. Like he's just a guy, and he proceeds to triangle me 8 times.
back to back.
8 times in 5 minutes. And what was funny is at the time I'm like 23, Mike's 24. So we're both kind of like hot-headed.
I want to see 24-year-old Mike.
Dude,
like,
he was, no. Oh, he was
he just posted
crazy.
that video online.
Dude, he was
him,
crazy.
Like,
That
jogging.
was him even a couple years later.
Oh, really?
Dude, yeah, no.
Like,
no, he
savage.
was crazy. He was crazy, dude. He was just like, he like just beat the brakes off me every class. So a lot of times I'd go to his class and I'd be the only one to show up, and he'd be like, all right, fine, I gotta teach this one kid that showed up, and like I gotta, before I spar, and what do you do? He'd be like, all right, don't tell Warren I did this, but here's the lesson this week. Let's drill for 5 minutes and we'll roll the rest around. And I'm like brand new, so I'm like, fuck yeah, let's do that. Like, yeah, awesome. And just proceeds just beat the brakes off me over and
that was his way of like stress release and
just over and over and over and over again. And then and it was funny, and just things just didn't work out with the satellite program there. After I was there for about 6 months, and Warren said he was gonna discontinue at the end of the month, and we're welcome to come down to his school. And I was like, yeah, you know what? Like, just because it was funny because like it wasn't even like purposeful, but like growing up, I always had a lot of really good wrestling coaches, and I was able to kind of learn to identify what a good coach is. And Mike and Warren, some of the best MMA and jiu-jitsu coaches I've ever had. Some of the best coaches, including all my wrestling coaches I've ever had, right? And I was like, yeah, I need to go with those guys. I need to go with them. So I go down there and start training in Lawrenceville. It's a little bit further away because I'm still in Ohio at the time, so it's a 45-minute drive.
Oh, damn, you were living in Ohio.
Yeah. So it's a 45-minute drive one way, but I'm going down there a couple days a week. And then actually it helped out a lot when he moved to the Strip District in March of 2013, because it actually, with traffic, it cut 10 minutes off my commute. So then I started going there more. And I was still in grad school. I was getting an MBA, and I was a grad assistant at the school's athletic department, just making a little stipend. And on spring break, a couple other people, they were like, we were talking after class in Lawrenceville one night, and they're like, and we realized we all had spring break at the same time, all in college or grad school. And we're like, let's go to New York and train at Henzo's for a week. Yeah, that'd be awesome. So we did that. And halfway through that week, I was like, dude, this is what I want to do. I don't want to go to get an MBA, get a law degree, go work a freaking 9 to 5, wear a suit every day, be miserable. I want to do this. And I kind of like, without talking to anybody, I was like, you know what? Like, I talked to my boss at the athletic department. I was like, I told him what I want to do. And he's like, dude, there's a really good business owner in the area. He owns a bunch of Anytime Fitness franchises. If you're trying to be a gym owner, that'd be a great place to start. And neither one of us knew what we were talking about as far as that goes, because I didn't want to own a big box gym. I want to own a jiu-jitsu school, MMA gym, right? And I was like, all right, cool. So I quit grad school and started started working for this guy. And I told him, like, hey, I train jiu-jitsu almost every night of the week in Pittsburgh. I know your job advertisement says work hours are 11 to 7. Is there any way I could turn that to 9 to 5 so I get out to Pittsburgh? And he's like, yeah, absolutely, for sure. Week and a half in, he's like, hey, that's just not going to work out for us. you got to work 11 to 7. I'm like, all right, fine, this sucks.
It's crazy how that happens all the time, huh?
Yeah, and I'm like, all right, whatever, man. So then I'm like, all right, this sucks. I can still make Friday nights and Saturday mornings. So I went from training Monday. I was like training Monday, Wednesday, Thursday, Friday, Saturday to Friday and Saturday. And after a couple weeks, Warren like pulls me aside after class, and it was a lot smaller back then. Like how if you haven't been in a while, like Logan or one of the other instructors will talk to you about it. Warren was the one doing that all himself at the time. And he's like, hey man, like you were training like 5 days a week for a while, like for a long time. He's like, and after I gave you your third stripe, you just dropped off. And I was like, dude, it has nothing to do with my third stripe. It's like, I'm like, it's this new stupid job I got. And he's like, what job? And I'm like, and I tell him, I'm like, I'm managing this like Anytime Fitness gym. And he's like, you're managing a gym? I'm like, yeah, why? And he's like, so here, come to my office really quick. I'm like, okay. He's like, I'm getting ready to like expand this a lot. And he's like, and Deanna, our front desk attendant, she's getting ready to join the Navy, and I need a new front desk person. I need it to be full time because she was working part time. I'm like, okay, cool. And he's like, I've talked to a bunch of different school owners. I talked to Pat Cooligan, Henzo, Sean Williams, and they think that I can really do this, like make it into like a big operation. And I'm like, okay, cool, awesome. He's like, here, I'm gonna give you my personal number because he doesn't give that out really to students. And he's like, call me tomorrow. I want to talk to you about what a realistic salary would work for you or would look like for you. And so I call him the next day.
How excited were you at this time?
Dude,
Because you're like,
crazy.
hold on, I'm going to be able to train and work at the same.
Dude, right. And it was funny. So I tell him what I'm like, what I need to make. And he's like, yeah, we can do that for sure. No problem. And then a month, and then like I start training a couple nights, and then what happened was and after that, I gave my 2 weeks notice to the guy, and it was funny too. It was like looking back, the conversation was hilarious. So I give my 2 weeks notice at Anytime Fitness, and they're like, "Well, it's a good thing you turned that in because I was actually getting ready to let you go today." I'm like, "Okay, sure,
Yeah, okay.
sure,
I see what he was doing.
yeah, exactly.
Salty.
So I do that, and it was funny too because I didn't know this at the time. Mike told me this like a couple of weeks later, like he was like when Warren gave him the full-time kids instructor job, and he was telling how he was like so upset that Warren gave that job to me because he wanted to do that job. And then what Mike would do is once he was able to stop working for his dad, he would like we'd train MMA stuff in the morning. Either Mike or Warren would teach the noon class. Then we train, and then me and Warren would be doing like office stuff all afternoon before the evening classes. Mike would just be hanging out. And Mike, it was funny. Mike was telling me that story, how he really wanted my job. He's like, I'm so glad Warren did give you that, give me your job. Your job sucks. I'm like, yeah, I know. It's a lot of.
You gave him a cramp during the show.
No, I know, that was hilarious, dude. So, and what Warren was saying to it was funny, because me and Mike are both the oldest siblings, so we're used to like growing up. We were always used to being the top dog, and I think early on when I first met him, he wasn't used to somebody like trying to like fight him for like top dog supremacy. So he just like beat the shit out of me to like be like
try to solidify. Yeah,
like just
sense.
marking his territory basically. But
this gym is mine.
Yeah. But so like Mike and Warren are awesome. I can't talk enough about them. Mike is the best in fight coach I've ever had. He can like if I listen to him and I'm doing exactly what he's saying, it feels like I'm a character in a video game, and he's just like playing with the controllers. Like, it is crazy how it works. And then Warren is the best technical coach I've ever worked with on a day-to-day experience. Like, he will definitely deny this, and he'll say that I'm trying to blow him up too big, but like I put him almost like on the level of like a Danaher or Sean Williams. Like he trained under those guys.
When he hears this, he's gonna be rolling.
I know, he's gonna be like, no, that's way too much.
Don't you ever say
that. And I don't want to offend those guys either. I'm not saying that he's better than them or he's even as good as them.
Well, it's everyone has their like
their own thing.
Yeah, their own thing. Like, I can watch Mike yelling on the side, and then I'll look in the ring, and it plays out.
Right. It's crazy.
Like,
it's crazy. The other thing that I think that that resonates really well for me with Warren is that, like, he mentioned on his episode with you that, like, he wasn't a great athlete when he was really young. When he first started, he became a great wrestler, but he didn't start out as a great wrestler. And I think part of the problem that I had, not a problem, but some of the coaches I had were phenomenal athletes from day one, and they couldn't relate to me, and not even in a bad way, but that they would almost like not hold me to the same standard that they would hold other athletes to. They'd like not let me cut corners.
The more gifted athletes.
Yeah. They wouldn't expect as much out of me. Warren doesn't care. He's like, if you set your goals to do this, you have to do it. I don't care what limitations or what things are what difficulties you have or like anything like that. If you say you want to do something, do it. Just do it.
That is literally the premise of this. Like, if you and your example is the perfect example of this podcast. Like, you could have quit.
Oh yeah.
After any one of those losses.
Oh yeah.
And then
absolutely.
Your life, you wouldn't be on this podcast.
Oh, no.
Who knows where you'd be?
Who knows where?
You know what I mean?
Exactly.
But you stuck through everything and managed the losses and the failures and all those thoughts in your mind of like, is this for me? Because that we translate that to life too,
exactly.
right? Like you want this job, you apply for it, you don't get it, the next guy gets it.
Yeah.
Easy to go. That wasn't for me.
That wasn't for me.
But maybe it is. Maybe it's just not your time.
Yeah, exactly. That's exactly it. Like I remember I was always really, really chomping at the. I was early on. I was really chomping at the bit to fight. And actually, first fight, my first MMA fight ever. I was winning first two rounds. I got caught, and then the second round, and the cage was almost like convex, so it like bent in. So I fell against the cage. Instead of falling over it, like I bounced off it, so I stayed standing, and then the round ended. And I remember afterward, Mike comes into the corner and he tells me exactly. He's like, when Chip, the ref, comes over to talk to you, tell him you're good. And then he's like, and then he comes over and he's like, Andy, are you okay to go for the third round? And I'm like, I'm good. And I'm okay. Like,
did I say it right, Coach?
Yeah, no, did I say it right? Yeah, exactly. And then I got knocked out third round, my first fight. And it was on the old Roots Sports. So a bunch of kids at the gym saw me get knocked out and stuff, and it was rough. But like it wasn't the right time for me yet. Then about 7 months later, I have my second fight, and I win with, at the time, was our fastest submission in team history. I got a guillotine in about 26 seconds, first round. Like just
almost ended it as fast as Masvidal that one fight.
Yeah, no. So my second fight, and I remember going into that fight, I was terrified because I didn't want to be an 0-2 fighter. I was like, I'm 0-1, can't be 0-2. So I'm like, I'm gonna set up a reactive takedown, get his hands up with my jab, double leg, take him down, work to get to mount, work to get to the back, try and choke him. And I double legged him, and it's funny on the video, he's trying to body kick me, but I lower my head into the kick, and I just drive through him. And then I take him down, and then he's coming up, and I take him down into half guard. He's coming up, and he's like extending his neck, so I just jumped on his neck and finished it, and got my first win. And it was like like you were just saying, like my first fight wasn't the right time for my first one. The second one couldn't have gone better. The only way it could have gone better is if I avoided that head kick, but I didn't even know I got kicked until I saw the video afterwards. And the ref told me right before after he raised my hand, he told me, he's like, hey, it's a good thing you kept going through that, because if not, I was going to stop that fight and disqualify him for that head kick. I'm like, what? And I asked him,
didn't even feel it.
No, I was like, I was like, what are you talking about? What head kick? He's like, oh, he kicked you on the way into that takedown. I'm like, what? I didn't even know. So
how did CP, like, how did you manage cerebral palsy through all this? Because there's people, and I talk to people, and I mean, not to downplay it, but that would be a valid excuse not to do half the shit you do, right?
Yeah, absolutely.
And when I talk to people, they're like, I can't, I don't have time, or it's like,
I don't have time,
or this is, I'm sore, or like, it's always an excuse, right? Like, how were you able to like get something that could be debilitating. I have a cousin with cerebral palsy, and funny, so he has like a severe case of it. He's in a wheelchair and stuff.
Yeah.
But like people don't realize like your mind is
That's the toughest
it's
thing.
normal. Like
so, I've actually I didn't learn about this until I was an adult. A lot of times the reason I think a lot of people that aren't aware think people with CP have like some sort of mental deficiency or something like that is because actually the most common cause, most common linked cause to CP, not cause, linked medical issue to CP is actually Down syndrome. Because because Down syndrome also affects the heart, I guess. I'm not sure on the specifics of that at all. So it affects oxygen in the brain at birth. So there are a lot of people with both, which my heart goes out to them. I feel so, like that their struggle is something I really even can't relate to, you know. But growing up, as soon as I got diagnosed, once I got diagnosed, my family's health insurance would pay for physical therapy. So I went to physical therapy from about 3 years old to 9 years old so I could learn how to do things like walk without a limp, tie my shoes, stuff,
all the normal stuff.
All the normal
stuff.
stuff that my parents weren't equipped to teach me because I had added limitations that a normal kid didn't. And then when I was in high school, my high school coach, the strength, he wrestled at UB after end trip, and his strength and conditioning coach was still there and had either a cousin or a niece or nephew with CP, and he was telling him about me at a wrestling tournament. He's like, "Oh, bring him in. I want to work with him and like help him out." And he gave me like basically a lifting plan on how to like try to limit the imbalance between the two. So like that was a big part of it. But honestly, it was just like I really got this idea in my head that the only thing that can limit somebody is their own like mental limitations. And I don't know how true this is or not, but I remember during a wrestling camp one time, we were doing this intensive wrestling camp with Josh Koscheck at University of Buffalo, and I remember he was like screaming at us while we were having to do these pull-up ladders, where or pull-up pyramid ladders, where you do like 5 pull-ups, 10 pull-ups, 15 pull-ups, 20 pull-ups, 25 pull-ups, and then back down until they're basically like throwing
miserable.
up, miserable, right? And he's telling us, he's like, Navy SEALs tell their cadets in Bud School that your mind will give out 45% sooner than your body. When you think you can quit, you can still give 45% more. And I always thought that. I'm like, you know what?
So that's actually, I don't know about the percentage, but your mind will give out before your body does.
Right.
In any situation.
I think it needs to, because if it was the reverse, you run yourself to death. Like,
or
die.
you become a beast.
Yeah, or you become a beast, right?
Look at David Goggins.
Yeah, exactly.
He shuts his mind off. It just doesn't exist.
That's what I I remember in high school, my coach was huge on conditioning, because he's like, you guys are too, like, because my whole team, we didn't have a kids program for like little kids, so we're all starting in middle school or later. And he's like, you guys are behind the 8 ball when it comes to experience. What you can have better than all these other kids you're wrestling is better conditioning. You can be in better shape. And he's like, what you got to do is you got to drag them to the ground. Like, just drag them into like just a fist fight and make them miserable, make them quit,
make them tired.
And that's why I've always thought about in wrestling, in MMA, in jiu-jitsu, if I can outpace you, if I'm feeling tired, you're exhausted. And I've always thought that way. So that's where like I'm like I won't let my body, I won't let myself quit. So that's a very big part of it. The other thing that I didn't really get this until I want to say like blue belt, so like only in the last like 7 or 8 years really, was Warren started talking about this after our comp practices, the idea of you need to take some time at the end of practice to yourself, within your own mind, think of one thing that you did well that you want to continue improving on, and one thing you need to fix. And it's funny because I tell people this because they're like, I seem like a optimistic, like really positive person, and I am. I've trained myself to be, because I've had to, because I'm actually very, very hard on myself. I'm always like, dude, you suck. You got to do that better. Like in my own head, right?
Yeah, I tend to be the same.
Yeah, and
way.
I'm very,
my
very,
own biggest
very,
critic.
very self-critical, right? And I started doing this. So what I try to do now is, no matter how bad my training went, I try and take one positive away. If I can take one positive away, that was a good training session. And I mean, coming up as like the front desk guy, when I first started, like, I mean, I was a 3-stripe white belt when Warren hired me, wasn't teaching any classes. My first 4 or 5 years training were rough because most of my training sessions were with Mike and Warren. Like
Getting beat up by your older brothers.
Exactly. Like when I first started on the fight team, it was Mike was getting ready to fight Jason Willett. And we were just like, because the fight team goes through like ebbs and flows where, I mean, we're the biggest and most successful we've ever been, thanks to Mike and Will. But there was like basically nobody around his size other than Warren. And Warren's like, I can't just like train with you every round. He's like, so like, we got a couple guys that are getting ready. Like they've expressed interest in fighting. So they brought me and 2 other guys in, to train with them. And Mike's, we're just basically like body bags at this point. Like Mike's just beating the brakes off us every Saturday morning, just destroying us. And I remember the one time, like when we started working with Will taught me this combo. I forget what it was. It was just something simple. It was like a 2-3-2, and I felt really sharp with it. I'm like, I'm gonna get Mike with that, and and I remember I landed on him. I'm like, and this was the first time I landed a punch on him, like ever. This was like a month or two into getting ready for this fight with him. And I'm like, oh, and I'm feeling good. I'm like, I'm gonna march him down, boom, boom, boom. And I'm trying to hit him again. He lowers, hits me with a body shot, just drops me. I fall like a sack of potatoes. I feel like I'm dying. Yeah, but yeah, that's like, so like I got into that like mindset of like I gotta find one positive, because like if I dwell on the negative, I'm not gonna be able to stick around, because I'm getting beat up by a pro MMA fighter and a Renzo Gracie black belt every day of the week. Like I'm not gonna see a lot of success at the beginning.
Have you ever heard of the samurai drill?
No.
So we, especially in firearms, I've gone to a couple. I do a lot of training, like combatives, DT, firearms and stuff. And I went to this Lodestone. They're called Lodestone Training and Consulting, and we did like crazy drills and shit, and we ended with what they called the samurai drill. And they explained it like, if you, let's say you had a bad range day or a bad training day and you leave, like that's going to be in your mind.
Yep.
I sucked, or I wasn't hitting, or you know, the one I put it on my story a couple weeks ago, I couldn't hold him out to save my life.
Yeah.
I've been training jiu-jitsu for 3 years and I can't hold him out. Like I suck, right? So the samurai drill, at the end of this training, they put up little spearheads, and you had to hit one spearhead one time. But you had to have the perfect draw, the perfect, point, the perfect trigger pull, the perfect hit. Once you felt you did it great, you were done, you were good to go. And what you noticed was we were there another hour. People just, and I hit it, but I was like, oh, I didn't like, boom, and I hit it. And by the end of the drill, I'm nailing all these little 1-inch spearheads, and then you're good to go. And you leave feeling like, no, I do got this. Like, I'm good. And it's like, just because you have a bad training day doesn't make you a bad jiu-jitsu practitioner or a bad shot or a bad anything. And it's that same concept of pick one good thing, right? Well, if you end on a positive note, let's say you got your ass beat the entire time, and then he comes up to you, he's like, dude, you hit me with that combo. Like, you never hit me. Yeah. You're going to walk out there McGregor style. Like,
so that's funny. A couple months ago, I remember Mike's been working really hard on his mount for Nogi, for just competing at real high IBJJF 80cc level. And he's just been messing me up this last half of 2023, just like destroying me. And I remember I was able to defend it. I was able to escape. And he was like, oh, that was good. And I've been hanging on to that.
That was good.
I've been hanging on to that.
Hey, we got that on quote. I'm gonna get that on quote here. That was good.
Yeah, he's gonna deny he ever said that. I mean, don't worry, Mike. You're still the greatest. You're the greatest jiu-jitsu black belt of all time.
You heard it here.
All right, Mike Wilkins, greatest of all time.
In the room of one. No. He's gonna kill me.
No, that was you. That wasn't me.
He's gonna be
that
like,
was you now.
Hey, Ish, let's roll.
Yeah, exactly.
You know that shoulder thing I was telling you about?
Yeah. Dude, no. Yeah, but that's exactly it. So, and before that idea of, I remember before that idea of take away one positive that you can take away, one negative you need to work on. Between my first and second fights, Warren was talking to me and he's like, we need to get you a one punch knockout equivalent of a submission. He's like, your striking is passable enough to get you on the ground. You're not going to knock somebody out with one punch though. He's like, it's not going to happen. Your striking's not there yet. And he's like, I tried it. So when he first hired me, he tried to get me a Darce because he felt like Darces translate really well for wrestlers. I couldn't figure it out. Since then, I figured it out. But at the time, new white belt, I could not figure out how to do a Darce to save my life. So then we started working on guillotines, both high elbow and arm and guillotines. And after every fight team practice, every wrestling practice, every jiu-jitsu practice, I was supposed to drill 50 guillotines every single day. Like every day. Drilled guillotines 50 times at the end of every practice. Didn't matter how tired I was, didn't matter anything. And that was before I consciously did it almost, that was the positive that I would take away at the end of the practice. Like, all right, I got my Mike beat my ass for an hour and a half, but I got a perfect guillotine at the end. I was able to drill it. I know I'm almost there to be able to hit it in live. And that's probably why I was able to finish that fight in 26 seconds, because I was confident enough to just jump a guillotine and drop back for it. So,
that's crazy. Because I always want to work on things, and I usually drill it and then open mat or something. But just that 50 times nonstop, just do it back to back.
Yeah. So what I do now, and I started doing this. I can't remember if it was last year or the year before. So the year before, what I would do is I would give myself one thing I want to work on for that entire month. In drilling, I'm going to drill it, and then I'm going to attempt to hit it in live. And if I'm going against somebody that's like close to my skill level, I'm going to let them know, like, hey, I'm going to try and do this. Just, like, I want to start in this position. Like, I'm working on my knee cut pass. Can we do a bunch of open guard stuff? If I'm going to somebody like the skill gaps a little bit more, I'm not going to tell them what I'm working on. I'm just going to be like, all right, you're going 100%. You're going to be trying your A game. I'm trying this new thing I'm working on. And then last year, I remember I was talking to Mike. He said Kimuras and crucifix. So that's all I worked on really last year of 2023. And then this year I'm working on top side control, mount, Darces again. So I think that's really important for jiu-jitsu, that you got, like, once you get to a certain point, I think like after like 2 or 3 years, you need to start like kind of developing your own game. Before then, it's like you don't know what you don't know. It's like, just let your instructors.
I still feel like
your instructors take care of you. They're gonna lead you in the right direction. They're gonna tell you what you need to work on and stuff like that. And maybe not even 2 or 3 years. Maybe like purple belt. Really, you need to start. And I'm saying this because I've been told this by my coaches. You need to start being able to develop your own game, see what you need to work on, go to them when you have questions, or you're like, hey, I'm hitting this roadblock here. What am I doing wrong? But you need to like it needs to be more self-guide. You can't let them just like hold you by a hand and take you everywhere, because unless you have an identical body type to them and identical athletic abilities, you're not going to have an identical game to your coach,
So, you're an instructor.
Yeah.
What is your teaching philosophy with, especially with kids or people who struggle or have a challenge, like based on your experience, your wrestling, your teaching, your coaches, like how are you able to adapt your philosophy to students who are, let's say, struggling with, like me, inversion doesn't happen. But Logan can fucking invert. I don't understand.
I don't understand
physics.
I don't understand that either. He is.
It didn't make sense.
It's kind of fallen out of use, but for a while we called him. We still have it. We call it the sad bear guard, because he has just like a resting. Like he's
resting bear face.
Yeah, resting bear face. Because he looks like just like a circus bear on the ground, just like rolling around and inverting. It's crazy. I don't understand how he moves as well as he does, as big as he is. Like, he moves like he's 140 pounds and he weighs 240 pounds.
I look at him and
it's
I'm like,
crazy.
Okay, there's a chance. And then the one class, he's like, all right, we're going to work on inversions. Let's go to the wall. I'm like, I'm gonna look like a fucking fool. So like, how are you able to deal with stuff like that?
So what I do is, it's subjective to the individual, right? Like everybody's gonna have a different ability. I'm not gonna hold the 50-year-old accountant to the same standard that we hold Christian to, you know? Like that'd be insane, right? And when I'm teaching somebody as a beginner, I go with it the idea that like, all right, you've probably never seen jiu-jitsu before. You've probably never wrestled before. You might never have done a sport before. This might be the first like physical activity you've ever done. You might be coming in from Dungeons and Dragons and board games, and that's all you ever
And those
did.
are the most dangerous ones.
Oh, 100%.
Those and
100%.
gamers.
No, dude. Usually they're the same person. They come in. They're like they have like the They look like they're like
I'll say it. They look like straight nerds.
They look like nerds, and then they learn about jiu-jitsu, and they become obsessed, and then it's like
Because they're so smart.
yeah, it's like what the heck is going on?
Do people look at me and they're like, "You do jujitsu?" And I'm like, "Yeah, but I'm not the dude you should be worried
No.
about. It's the little dude
It's the
over
little
there."
dude over there. Yeah.
That's why I love jujitsu. It's like the
so
ultimate balancing. I call it the
is.
balancing act.
It is. I remember. So this was funny. I remember years ago. I forget how this came up. It was during a Q&A at a seminar that Daniel Gracie did, and it somehow got the idea. Somebody asked him about like jiu-jitsu for street fights, and he was like, "Motherfucker, don't get in a street fight." And he's like, and everybody starts laughing. He's like, "No, I'm not kidding. You look at this motherfucker, look Warren over here. He looks like an accountant. You will fucking kick all of your asses though in a street fight." And
Dude,
it's
if
like,
you've seen Warren in the street, you know, because he tends to stay to himself.
yeah, he stays to
and
himself. He's meticulously and religiously worn headgear every training session since he was 8. 'Cause he
I
didn't
did
want
see that.
cauliflower ear.
Yeah.
And so he has no cauliflower ear. Yeah, I mean, he has a little bit of a wrestler build, but like, yeah, if you see him out and about, you just think he's like, oh, this is an athletic guy. He likes to work out. I remember I forget who was said it. It was like, yeah, Warren doesn't look like a fighter. He looks like a fitness enthusiast. He looks like
Yeah.
a CrossFit guy, right? Right?
Yeah, try that. Yeah, try that.
Right. And it's like no, he will destroy everybody. Yeah, so that's my favorite thing about jiu-jitsu too. Is it is the great equalizer. And I was actually just talking about this when I was teaching at noon, like the idea that like we had this long lanky guy and stuff like that, and he was saying how frustrated he gets because like it feels like everybody's able to get like arm bars easier on him. And I'm like, yeah, because you have a longer point of leverage.
Oh,
limbs
so
are
much real estate,
longer.
yeah.
He's like, but you want to know what? You look at somebody like me that's short and stocky. It's a lot easier to choke me because you've got a lot less space to take up.
Dude, people choke me with my own arms.
Yeah, exactly.
Because I like, it just starts
like,
cutting off everything.
Yeah, like I'm pretty sure a kid could arm triangle me if they got it correctly. Like it doesn't matter. And that's why I was like, it's the great equalizer. Like every body type has its own strengths and weaknesses. Everybody's like, yeah, you got the big super athletic meathead who's just like a freak of nature and can deadlift 700 pounds, and then you got this like little nerd that has the attention span to go home and watch 14 hours of Danaher instructionals a night, and then 2 weeks he knows every leg lock on earth. You know?
Yeah, he studied I know people who study jiu-jitsu.
Mm-hmm.
Like I'm guilty of, I show up to classes, you know, I apply it. When I'm at work, we'll go downstairs to the mat room, we'll kind of play around. But like, then I know I have a buddy who will be at home. I'll go to his crib, we eating, and he's just watching jiu-jitsu instructionals on TV. I'm like, bro, what are you? He's like, oh, just watching TV.
Yeah.
Like, bro, you're watching jiu-jitsu.
Jiu-jitsu instructionals. Oh no, I'm the worst at that too. I've had like 3 instructionals I've been trying to work my way through for 3 years. 3 years.
I can't.
I'll watch like 15 minutes at a time, one time, and it's so tough. I mean, I'm always like, it's different now with me being an instructor because a lot of times I'll have somebody like ask me a question on something before like a private lesson. It's like something I'm familiar with, maybe I'm not like an expert on. Like they're like, oh yeah, I want to work on like Kimuras and stuff, and I'm like, all right, I need to refresh myself a little bit. So I'll go and look on some stuff from like people I respect and I know are authorities and stuff like that. I'll look up some like Carl Pravik stuff, Sean Williams stuff, and kind of like get like tune my like kind of sharpen myself up with that a little bit. So, but that's almost like less for my own game. That's more like as an instructor, but it does sharpen it up a little bit.
But that's important as an instructor to do that as well. Because
I think so too.
Like to be an instructor, you have to be a good leader. Mm-hmm. But you don't have to. People think you have to know everything.
You don't.
No, you just have to know where to find everything or a good network. Like tapped in with Mike and Warren and Logan and guys like that, like
Exactly.
you guys make one hell of a team.
Exactly.
And that's why, like, I push Stout so hard. It's like, yeah, great facilities, looks cool, great classes, a lot of class times. But I was trying to tell my buddy, and I won't say his name out of respect for the gym he was going to. But I'm like, bro, like, I'm not telling you to leave your gym. I'm just telling you to go to a class.
Yeah.
Go to a class. And he did the Black Friday special. He's like, I bought like 30 class. We were hosting some sort of sale.
Yeah.
He's like, I took advantage of it. I'll be going to both. He went the Stout one the first day. He's like, bro, I love it.
It's completely different.
I'm like, I told you.
People don't understand it, and it comes from the top. Warren set out with a very specific goal in mind to build a very specific type of culture that is, I think, really lends itself well. And you see how many great instructors we have now. You see how many great black belts we have now. You see how many great brown belts and purple belts we have now. It lends itself to developing people really, really well. And the other big goal I remember he had, and he told me this really early on, he wanted to, so there was when he started, there was this school of thought that you could either have a really good business, a school that's a really good business and makes a lot of money, or a school that's really good competitively. Like their fighters and grapplers win a lot. That you couldn't do both. And he wanted to prove that it could be done, and I feel like he has in a lot of ways.
Oh,
I
would agree.
We have a ton of full-time instructors there. Like I talk about this with like our other managers all the time, like how lucky we are. Like the fact that like we're able to do this full time, and like I do not take that for granted. Like I mean, like the fact that I teach jiu-jitsu and I bought a house. Like that's crazy. Like I know people at other schools that like they're teaching jiu-jitsu full time and they're like sleeping on the mats because they can't afford a place. Like it's like when I remember when I first started, we did consulting with Pat Cooligan from Ottawa, Ontario. At the time, he had the largest Henzo school, a series of schools in the world. I think he had like either him or Amal Easton, and he had I think 9 schools in and around Ottawa. And I was doing consulting with one of his guys, a consulting call with one of his guys, and he was kind of like just like first intro call, like he wanted to meet the Warren's front desk guys so they could like coach me up on some stuff. And he was like, "Oh, what do you do around the school?" I'm like, "Oh yeah, I handle the front desk during classes. I answer emails, answer the phone. I clean up at the end of the night. I do like this any other odd tasks that Warren has to do." And he's like, "Oh, okay, cool. What classes do you teach?" And I'm like, "I don't. I'm a white belt." He's like, "What? You don't teach?" He's like, Warren pays you full time? I'm like, "Yeah." He's like, I've been doing consulting with Pat I've been working with Pat for almost 15 years, and I've been doing consulting with him for almost 10. And he's like, "And you're the first person I've ever met that worked for their gym full time and did not teach classes." And I'm like, "Really? Wow." And I'm like, "That's great." And I heard about that. Like every other person that was in my position that we knew of in the world was a part-time job. Like they would come in and work the front desk, and then at the end of the night they'd go bartend or they'd go Uber or something like that. They got to pick up something else because they're not getting paid enough to survive, you know. And Warren's always taking care of us like that, you know. And it's like the way like and he's good. I feel like I feel weird saying this because I feel like I'm almost giving myself a pat on the back because I'm including myself in this group. But like
you're allowed to.
He's really good at picking good people. And he's really good at developing the good people. And he's teaching us how to do that as well. You know, like we're having to like as we keep growing, and he gives us more responsibility and there's more management tasks and stuff like that. Like me and Mike are always. It's funny. The last couple months, me and Mike have talked more than I think. Me and Mike have talked more in the last couple months, I think, than we have since we were one school where it was just me and Mike and Warren every night of the week.
Well, because things are growing. Things are growing fast.
Right?
And it's important to build a network.
Exactly.
I was just. Do you know who Tom Dowd is?
I've heard the name.
He co-founded Performance Inspired with Mark Wahlberg. He's the CEO at 45. So his episode drops Sunday. Sunday.
Cool. Awesome.
Well, when people are listening to this, his episode is the last one from last week.
Yeah.
But he came from nothing.
Yeah.
and talked about the importance of like network and building a good group. And
Exactly.
the entire time he's talking, I'm like, that's exactly like I grew up humble beginnings.
Yep.
Like
Same.
no nickels to rub together.
Yep.
And now like I can't ask for anything because I got everything I got everything I've prayed for and more.
Yep.
You know, and I attribute that to the people I've surrounded myself with.
Exactly.
You know, and
Exactly.
if you surround yourself with good people with good intention, you can teach them to do just about everything.
That's absolutely true. That's
Like-
absolutely true. Like looking back on it, I'm like Warren's taught me so much because not like I was never lazy or didn't care or anything like that. But there was a lot of, like, when Warren first hired me, there was a lot of things I just wasn't good at that I
You don't know what you don't know.
you don't know what
said
you
it.
don't know.
Yeah.
Yeah, you don't know what you don't know. And I remember, like, he taught me so many things. And it's like, yeah, it's really, that's absolutely true. And that's like, and it's funny, you know what? Like, that's why, like, my biggest pet peeve is negative people. I can't stand negative, pessimistic people because I feel like if I surround myself with those kind of people, I'll start thinking like that.
Yeah. Oh,
And
dude,
I
it's
don't-
contagious.
I can't stand that. I remember this one time there was this guy. It was we were still above the donut shop, and we were at fight team practice. And this guy was complaining about something. I forget what he was like being really loud and like whiny about it. And I remember it was week after week after week. Always had something to complain about. Always had something to whine about. And I was quiet during fight team practice because I wasn't the top dog like Mike. I was just another amateur fighter, right? Like I wasn't trying to tell people what to do.
I'm there for a job, you know.
Yeah,
like
you know,
I'm there to work, to
Yeah, yeah.
train. Like
Yeah, but I remember I got so pissed one time. I threw my gloves off and I was like, listen, if you don't want to fucking be here, then get the fuck out of here. Fucking get out of the door. You don't have to be here. We all want to be here. Get the fuck out of here. And I remember Mike the next day, he told me, he's like, hey, Luke Burdett said he's never been more impressed with you. He's like, he's never heard you talk before. I'm like, really? Because this is when like Luke was still fighting and stuff too, and he was a monster, dude. He's still a monster. He's the scare, like he's one of the scare. Like I don't know what it is. Like I have better rounds with Mike and Warren than I do with Luke. I don't know why, because he's a different animal. But anyways, but yeah, I can't stand like those like negative, pessimistic people that always, and it's like the most frustrating thing with those kind of people too, you see is that it's like they're always dealing with some difficulty and it's never their fault. It's always something going on.
That's the biggest
and
thing.
It's never
is
their
that
fault.
accountability.
It's never their fault. It's never their fault. Oh, woe is me. There's nothing they can do about it. It's always something going on. I'm like, dude, you can. There's a way. Like
it's very contagious.
Yeah.
And if I hate to say it's simple because it's simple, but it's hard.
yes,
It's a mindset switch.
100%.
Right? Like just
100%.
yeah, shit sucks. Things are hard. What are you gonna do? What are you doing
What
about
are you doing
it?
about it? Yeah,
We can sit here and mope, which is okay.
Okay.
There's a time and a place, and
Exactly.
I spoke with a guy who, when his restaurant got shut down, it was my first episode of season 2. He talked about, he's like, I told myself I'm gonna allow myself to feel this, and I know this is my situation, but it's only my situation right now.
It's temporary.
Temporary. Like I'm getting out of this.
Yeah.
It's okay to feel that.
Yeah.
But then you start to develop that pattern of like, well, now it's this and now it's this. And it's like,
And it's
what's
contagious.
the common denominator here?
It's you.
It's you.
And it's tough because you tell people that and they're like, wow, you're an asshole. You have no empathy for this person. It's like, no, I get it. Trust me, I get it. Like I had some rough stuff happen growing up. That was out of my control because I was a kid,
What can you control?
What can
Your
you control?
reaction.
Yeah, exactly. It's like I had rough stuff going on. Like I had to, like, I remember in high school a lot of times I had to pay for camps myself because my parents didn't have the money to pay for camps year round and pay for club wrestling year round and stuff like that. So I had to figure out a way to pay for it myself, and I did that. And I always had the support of my parents and everything like that. But it was like what I wanted to do was more than what they were capable of providing for me. I mean, it was all 7 kids, a lot of mouths to feed.
Big family.
Yeah, big family. And it's like, so when I look at people like, oh, I don't have enough, and like I'm very in my role now here with us at Stout, I have to be empathetic, right? And I'm very empathetic when people say like they can't afford to pay, but in the back of my head, I'm always thinking, I'm like, dude, I started as a grad assistant making $600 a month, and all I did was, all right, well, I'll stop going out. I at the time I'd go out to bars 3 nights a week. I'm like, I'll go out 2 nights a week. I'm spending $25 a night Cool. After a month, that's $100. I can scrounge up another $20 on top of that to pay for jiu-jitsu for $120 a month at the time, you know? And that's how I made it work. I mean, I was making $600 a month, and I was able to pay for jiu-jitsu.
It's about the priorities,
Exactly. It's about the priorities. And it's like, I get it. Like I get like somebody that has like bills and rent and car payment and everything else. I get that. But it's like if you want to make it happen, you'll make it happen. Same thing with like and even beyond that, like, all right, like when somebody's like, oh, I don't have time to work out. It's like one, you could work out without a gym. If like I'm talking about not even people talking about jiu-jitsu. I'm talking about people like.
I love when people look at me and they go, "Oh, must be nice to be." I'm like, dude, bro, I work 12 hours a day. I have a kid. I have a family. I'm like, I'm at the gym at 4 a.m.
Exactly.
While you're drooling.
Exactly. Like it's actually even on me. Like I'm always telling myself like I don't lift as much as I should. Honestly, like I've been ever since when I was fighting MMA, I was very consistent with my lifting schedule because I was terrified of getting my ass kicked. Now that I'm done fighting, maybe I should be still with that mindset because I'm still competing in jiu-jitsu. I don't want somebody blowing my knee out or breaking my arm. But I've been very inconsistent the last couple years.
But you're here getting reps in, man. Like, that's the thing.
Oh, yeah. But what I'm saying is that I'm not lifting because it's not a priority. If I wanted to make it a priority, I'd be lifting regularly, right? And that's the thing. It's like you don't do what isn't. If you don't make it a priority, you're not going to do it. You know,
it's simple. It's what it boils down to. And like we can overcomplicate things, and we can tell. And that's the thing. When people are telling me everything that's going on, in my mind, I'm very empathetic. I love people. Yeah. I literally tell myself, I'm like, they don't want it. Like, I'm not going to sit here and convince them to want it.
Exactly.
Because by them telling me the 100 excuses and not one way to mitigate or manage it, they're telling me they don't want it. So I'm not going to sit here and waste.
So I do this thing. I've been doing this. When I first started jiu-jitsu, I was like the jiu-jitsu evangelist. Like I was telling everybody I could that you got to start jiu-jitsu. You got to start jiu-jitsu.
I'm still the same.
I stopped when I started working working at the front desk because my first job was I handled all the inquiries. So everybody that emailed and called, I emailed and called them back or talked to them to get them to come in, try out class, and sign up. So my job was literally to sell jiu-jitsu to people. I don't know about you, but if I don't want to do my job when I'm not doing my job. Like if I'm just hanging out with friends, I don't want to try and sell them jiu-jitsu, right? I love my job.
I
love my
exactly
job
what
so much.
Mean.
I'm not. I don't want to say it in a way that makes it sound like I don't appreciate my job. But when I'm not working, I don't want to work, right? So like if I have a friend, like I remember I had like friends that like oh yeah, I want to try the jiu-jitsu. I'm like, oh yeah, do it. And then I'd bring it up a couple months later. Oh, did you ever get to try jiu-jitsu? He's like, no. And then it's like always a constant thing. And I'm just like, all right, whatever,
cool.
man. Cool.
Well, it's the same with like me being a cop, right?
Yep.
I'm at a bar. What do people want to do? Oh, dude, I have this. I'm like, I'm at a bar, bro. I don't want to talk. Yeah, I don't want to talk about anything at work or like any of that.
Yep.
Like let's drink, let's chill, whatever. Or we're at a friend's house and it's like, oh, hey man, I was good. You know, oh man, no. I don't want to go there.
I mean, I can't for like police officers. I can't even imagine. It's like for like a civilian like me, like we can't even relate to what you guys deal with, right? So like, I don't necessarily like. I'd feel weird talking to cops about what they do.
It's like, why?
It's like, I can't relate to it. Like,
well, even that, like, people love to know, man.
Oh,
like,
yeah.
I'm just
like,
like,
I'm just in awe of you guys. Like, honestly, and it's like, and especially cops that train, because like you guys like not only do you do what you do, but you realize the seriousness of it, and you're like, I'm gonna take time out of my day and a lot of times my own bank account because my department's not going to pay for jiu-jitsu, and I'm going to train in order to keep myself safe, make sure I go home to my family, and keep everyone I interact with safe. Right? Like that's awesome.
That's when Mitch Aguirre started that Adopt a Cop program.
It's awesome.
Like, yeah. You'd be dumb. Now it's when I first. That's what got me into Stout.
Okay. Oh yeah, I remember you talking
a couple
about
years
that.
ago. I was like, hold on, like. there's a thing to help me. I'm like, cool, because I was looking at other gyms and like the vibe wasn't right, and like, so I come to Stout, and then, you know, Warren works something out with me. I'm like, all right, cool, like, and I just fell in love. And like I'm a huge proponent of jiu-jitsu, especially for law enforcement, because like, dude, one, you get comfortable in, like the main reason that the level of violence is escalated by police officers is because of fear.
Fear and lack of knowledge.
They're not trained. There was this specific case in Grand Rapids where the cops wrestling with some dude, and the cop ends up, the dude's like turtled. The cop is on his back. Is that a good thing or a bad thing? In jiu-jitsu. That's
the best. That's
you're
the
like,
best, right?
dude, you're good.
Yeah.
Takes his gun out, shoots him in the head.
Yeah. There's nothing this guy can do to you.
I'm like, but that's coming from a place of jiu-jitsu. I'm like, bro.
You're aware. Yeah, he's just freaking out because he doesn't know what's going to happen next. He's probably used to seeing that position in like John Wick, and the guy's going to roll over his back and in front kick him somehow and stab him in the face.
Bro, I was like, but here's the thing. It was ruled justified.
Yep.
And guess what? It was, when you take account
of all of the
situation. I'm like, could it have been avoided? Yes.
Yes. Just because it's justified
doesn't mean it's okay.
Or good.
We call it lawful but awful.
Yeah.
I'm sure you've heard that.
Yeah, I've heard that too.
I've
heard that from some of the officers.
It's just like lack of training, man.
Exactly.
Like, and that with everything in life, you see people who train jiu-jitsu, MMA, like some of the nicest, most humble people.
100%.
Why? Because they have confidence. They don't need that security from someone else, because now they found it within. It's like, dude, it helps mental health. It helps with obviously physical fitness and all that stuff. What advice do you have for people who are maybe hesitant now that you're like you're on a high level of your jiu-jitsu game? You're an instructor. You manage the location. You also do the Stout Fights promotions and stuff. So like, you are as balls deep in jiu-jitsu as you can get.
Yes, I can't get any deeper.
Yeah.
My advice, are you talking about advice for people that want to get into it?
Just get started in jiu-jitsu.
Just start. Well, the two things. Start, look at schools, look at their reviews online. If they have good reviews, check them out. If they don't, then don't waste your time. The other thing I think is make sure you're at a place you're comfortable with, right? And I'm saying that in a way that not everywhere is going to be everything for everyone, right? Like I mean, if you're a guy that wants to just like come in and brawl, we're not going to be the right place for you, right? I've heard that from people before, that like we don't give enough hard training, which is funny considering I had one guy tell me that after I spent an hour and a half in comp practice in the morning getting freaking demoralized by Mike and then Tanner.
Like, stop going to the intro classes.
Yeah, stop going to the intro classes. Exactly. That's exactly it.
Dude,
that's exactly it. Well, what's funny too is like people like I'll tell people when they sign up, they're like, oh, how long does it take me to get intermediate open mat? I'm like, 4 to 6 months for most people, and then they're telling me 2 weeks in, they're like, hey, the training in the fundamentals classes isn't hard enough for me. I'm like, dude, you've come to 4 classes. Chill. You're not there yet.
I love the structure that Stout has put into place. Like, you have intro was just recently added.
Oh yeah.
You know, because when I first came on,
I was
just straight fundamentals, and I'm like,
right?
like I've always fought growing up, so I knew the verbiage and stuff, but I'm like, all right, like I'm just gonna figure it out.
So the intro class is designed for someone that has zero experience at all, like literally somebody that's never watched a wrestling match before, never watched an MMA fight before, didn't know what jiu-jitsu was until their friend or they heard about it on a podcast or something. They're like, okay, I'm gonna look at jiu-jitsu.
Wink.
Exactly. And they're like, oh, and they're really, and usually they're really nervous.
No, you're fine.
Yeah, you're good.
Yeah.
All right. And that's what that's designed for. Anybody who's a beginner can come to the fundamentals classes. Like I get a lot of new people being like, oh, I want to come and start, but the intro class, there's only like 2 intro class times a week. They don't work for me. I'm like, come to a fundamentals class. The way we developed our fundamentals curriculum is the idea that it is supposed to be accessible to anybody on their first day. Like it does follow curriculum, but it's numbered mostly just for instructor organization, so we know which week we're on. It's not like you have to start on week 1. You could start on week 12 and you're gonna be fine. You're not.
Yeah,
gonna
it's
be
trial
lost.
by fire.
It's
You
trial
go
by
in and learn.
And that's why we do situational training in fundamentals classes too. We're not gonna be like, okay, this week we're working on half guard. Buddy, I know it's your second week. If you get into back control, good luck. Like,
no, I like that structure. I'll bounce between intermediate and
and
fundamentals because
I think that's a good balance too.
yeah, because in intermediate you're gonna get guys just like and girls who are just like, let's go.
Let's
you know?
go. Exactly.
And I'm like, well, I really want to drill this, you know. But with the fundamentals, it's so situational that you're like, you're here. This is when you reset.
Exactly.
It forces you to drill this and in real life. And when I teach DT, defensive tactics, in our station, we're huge on pressure checking, right?
Exactly.
And especially when you're training cops, you have to be careful, mitigate injury, all the backs and knees and stuff. So at the end, I go, this is 100% voluntary. We're going to go about 70% on me.
Yep.
On me, because I can mitigate injury the most for people.
Exactly.
So you can see that this works. So you can see that this ain't horseshit.
Yeah, exactly. And I think that's what differentiates jiu-jitsu from every other martial art, basically. Even like Muay Thai and striking. If you go 100%, if you
No
spar,
offense, Will.
I love you,
You're
Will.
next week.
But
we're gonna talk about it.
I love you, Will.
You can defend yourself.
But he's gonna say the same thing. You can't spar hard every day in Muay Thai unless you want applesauce for brains.
That's
like
true.
It's just like you're gonna cool. You want to get a speed run to CTE. Like go hard every single day. But with jiu-jitsu, you can train live every single day. Like that's the big thing. I remember really early on when I started, we'd get parents calling asking about our karate classes, and rather than trying to explain to them on the phone before we even bring them in, like, oh, that's not karate, we do jiu-jitsu, we'd hand them an intro packet that explained the difference between karate and jiu-jitsu, and basically like all these like traditional martial arts that don't have any sparring, it's basically choreographed dances. You know, it's not going to teach. It's going to kind of okay, cool. You'll kind of teach you how to throw a punch, kind of teach you how to throw a kick, but it's not going to teach you how to win a fight, right? And I think that's really important for people. And I think I like what you're saying. Jump back to a different point. What you're saying about the balance between intermediate and fundamentals. I've been thinking about that a lot lately, especially with blue belts. I've seen that they fall into this trap of they will try to basically just do open mats, which is, I get it. It's fun. If I could get better at jiu-jitsu without drilling, I would just train live. Just do nothing but open mats. Just go.
I'm a big technical person, so
Yeah.
like I'm actually opposite.
Yeah.
I'll hit every drill class and then bounce between fundies and intermediate.
Yep.
And then hit up an open mat or two.
Yeah.
But my open mats are very like structured as well. Like,
I think that's really important. Like the only time I'll go into an open mat without a plan is if it's like I'm just like super stressed from
or holiday season.
Or holiday season.
Let's roll.
Yeah. If it's a holiday open mat, or I'm like I do this like but like the week before events, I'm usually super stressed, and I'm just like I just need to like forget about how Jim Bob just pulled out with a sprained finger or whatever. Like,
oh, I can't imagine. Yeah,
dude,
the whole promotion.
We'll talk about that too. But yeah, and I'll just go in and I'm just like, I just need to train. I just need to train to get my mind off it. But most of the time, I'm the same way. Like, I want to be really structured. Like today, this afternoon, after I got done teaching noon, I did the 1 p.m. open mat for a while with some of our blue belts here, and my whole goal was to work on some new leg entries I've been looking at. Like I have some decent leg locks I like, and some kind of basic leg entries that I use, and I feel like people are kind of getting wise to them because I hit them a lot. So now I'm trying to kind of up the level a little bit now. So that was my goal today. It was like just enter into the leg, enter into cross ashi, heel hook, either ideally inside the heel hook. If I can, I'll switch to outside, stuff like that. But yeah, I try to go in every training session with a plan. If I don't, it's kind of like, it's like cool. If I don't go in with a plan, I'm just going to default to my A game, and cool, I just guillotined a bunch of blue belts for.
But it's like
minutes, but I didn't get better.
Yeah, that's my whole, like, even like people be like, oh, do you go to the gym? It's like, I know what they mean. I'm like, yeah, you know. But in my mind, it's like I train.
You train.
Like when I go to the gym to lift, I'm training something.
It's not social hour.
No, yeah, I'm training something. Like I have a plan. I have a plan of attack. I have specific things I'm doing, specific rest. When I go to jiu-jitsu, I have a plan. I'm training. Like I met people who go to the gym and figure it out as they go. It blows my mind.
Trust me.
I'm like, what?
Same.
You just pick a machine?
Like, what? That's crazy. That's
But
crazy.
Do you realize? And I'm like, I want to see, like, I don't mean this in like a sexual way. Like, I want to see your bedroom.
Yeah.
I want to see your house, your kitchen. Like, if that's how you're living your training, what is your personal life like? It has to be in shambles.
It has to be like a complete, complete
Or just
mess.
the most carefree people.
Yeah.
Like,
or just relax.
Yeah, they tend to be the dopest people to hang out with anyway.
A lot of times. I know. I'm the same. Although, my pet peeve about jiu-jitsu and open mats is when I get the person that's like, they're just sitting on the wall 3 out every 4 rounds, and they're just talking, and then they'll come in and do a round. It was funny, like
dude, that's me sometimes with my conditioning.
Oh
shit.
yeah.
Dude, I'm like,
so this was
on.
a couple of years ago. I was getting ready for the Nashville Open, and Dan Dungili, that just got his brown belt after the open mat that I was training at. He comes in, he's laughing. He's like, and I'm like, what's funny? He's like, I was watching you train at open mat. He's like, you did 12 rounds, didn't you? I'm like, yeah. He's like, every person that you did a round with, they rested. They asked you if you wanted to get around, and then they did another rest. And he's like, you didn't take any rounds off. And then Warren pops his head out of his office, and he's like, welcome to my world, Andy. Because everybody, it's funny. It's like I'm seeing a glimpse of this. What Mike and Warren and Logan deal with is that they will get students that want to do rounds with them at open mat. And that round, like Warren, Mike, and Logan are just training. But for that person, that round is their world championship. They're trying to get something on them, and they have this. I think Mike talked about this too. Like,
I hit Mike with this.
Yeah, I think Mike talked about this on his podcast too. Like they have this idea that if they beat them, that's going to impress them. Like, no, what's going to impress me as an instructor is, are you doing good stuff? Are you doing good
consistently?
stuff?
That was his big word. Consistently.
Exactly. You want to know what I'm most impressed with when I'm rolling with students is, are you able to shut down my attacks? Not even are you able to like submit me or beat me, because there's plenty of people that are tough enough and good enough and better than me that beat me. What impresses me is when somebody's able to defend what I'm attacking them with.
Actively, yeah. It shows you actively knowing what's happening.
Actively knowing what's happening. It's like, oh yeah, I'm going for this guillotine. You're peeling my hand off. You're clearing your head out. You're doing great. Like, awesome. That's cool. Especially when I first, when Britt came on full time, I first started training with her a good bit. And the first round I ever had with her, I submitted her, I guillotined her 5 times. And I could tell she was pissed. She was angry. And I don't guillotine her anymore. Straight up. She's gotten so much better. She's gotten so good. And she's such a good student. I know Mike and Will have told you this too. She absorbs everything like a sponge.
I feel like it's a majority of the fight team.
It is.
That's why I love watching them train. Everyone's there for the right reason.
Exactly. Mike and Will have developed such a good culture on the fight team now. It used to be there was this attitude of people would just want to go in there and spar. They would never go to Will's striking classes. They would never go to Mike's jiu-jitsu classes. They would never drill the MMA stuff. Now they are all students. They all are students of combat sports. They are not just trying to they're not just trying to go to sparring and good fight and be able to tell their girlfriend and their friends, hey, I'm an MMA fighter. Hey.
Those get weeded out real quick. Yeah.
It used to be that was a lot of them, and now and that's kind of why I purposely distanced myself from the fight team when I started promoting events, just because I didn't want a perception of biasness in a way.
Interesting. Let's go into that real quick, because that is tough.
Yeah,
that is tough, because Stout Fights, it's its own promotion, and then we have a fight team.
Exactly.
And I love when I go there and you don't see all of Stout people. It's it's gonna be a good show.
Yeah, and Will gets so angry at me for that,
and that's okay
because we don't have a great record. Our Muay Thai team doesn't have a great record on our own shows. And it's because I try to match up fairly. So when we started Stout Fights, what was funny was we had 2 other people that at the time that were telling Warren they wanted to do a Muay Thai show because there was no Muay Thai out here. USK is the biggest USK US Kickboxing Alliance is the biggest Muay Thai promotion in Pennsylvania. They do shows in Pennsylvania, Virginia, Delaware, New Jersey.
Are they like boxing and MMA in the sense of like there's like they're very strict with like boards and associations and all that? Yeah, that's tough.
Yep. And they did the last time they did a show in Western PA. They did a show in Butler in 2014. And then like they were supposed to come back the next year in 2015 and they didn't. So then and then they said that they weren't. So these other couple people said they were gonna do a Muay Thai show, and they were like, and Warren was like, cool. And one of them worked for the gym at the time, and Warren was like, oh then yeah, let's make that happen. He'd follow up with them every couple months, and something would be happening. They didn't happen. And then after about a year of that, he was just like, he was fed up with it. He was tired of hearing about how they were gonna do a Muay Thai show. It just didn't happen. He comes to me one day, he's like, hey Andy, I want you to do a Muay Thai show. And I'm like, okay, how do I do that? He's like, I don't know, I'll figure it out. and that's how it got, that's literally how it got started. And what I did was, so I was like, all right, I'll try and figure it out. So I contacted one of the other gyms in Pennsylvania that had a lot of people on USK, and I asked them if they knew anything about that. And they're like, oh yeah. Here, here's their contact information. Let's talk to them, ask them if they can help you out. And I called them, and at the time, PA wasn't sanctioning Muay Thai. USK was their own independent sanctioning body. So they're like, yeah, we can help you out. Here, we can, do you want to rent a ring from us, or we can sell you a ring? And I tell Warren what the rental price was. I think the rental price was like $3,000. We could buy it for $5,000. He's like, oh yeah, it makes sense just to buy it. Let's just buy the ring from them. So we bought a ring for them. And I got all my promoters. I still had to get promoters license through PA, although they weren't sanctioning the fight. I had to promote it through PA, and then I had to get it approved by PA. All the fights approved by PA, even though it had nothing else to do with other than taking a ticket tax. They weren't even there for it. It was weird. But for that first show, that first year in 2016, and then I bought a ring from them, had them come out and sanction the event. We hosted at the Ross Township Community Center, a little gymnasium, like literally like probably the whole gym was probably the size of this like front mat, little gym. It held like 250, 300 people. We had one of our members, like they like had a VCR recorder, and they or like a digital
How about this?
Camera.
Damn, VCR.
It wasn't that old. No, digital camera, but they recorded it for us, and we posted it up on Facebook afterwards, and it was cool. It was really awesome. It was like 10 fights, and we had it was crazy. So Muay Thai was like, people are so hungry. Like Muay Thai gyms are so hungry for outlets for their competitors to fight in. We had people from PA, Ohio, New York, Maryland, and Texas on that first card, like first ever. So we did that. The next year, we did another one at the Ross Township Community Center, and that was the last one we did at the Ross Township Community Center because they had a capacity for 300 people, and I sold 600 tickets. So
that's freaking awesome.
They weren't happy about that. And then after that, we went to the Isoplex down in near Bridgeville or in South Point. Did that a couple years. We did one at the Ace Hotel, Maverick Hotel, which was also a little too cramped and small for the crowd we bring. Then we did one up at the Pittsburgh Shrine Center this past fall. We're probably gonna be doing 2 this year too. So I'm really excited.
There's something happening from Stout Fights.
Yeah.
Right? March.
Oh yeah. So that's our in-house tournament.
Tournament.
We run those under like the Stout Fights umbrella because it's one of our events, but it's a little bit different. It's not really like our in-house tournaments aren't really like meant for spectators. Like everybody always brings their mom, their girlfriend, their grandma, and everything to watch, but there's not really like spectator seating because it's in the Strip District gym.
Oh, I was there for one of those.
And what those are designed for, and we've been doing those forever.
I ran the clock.
Yeah, we've been doing those forever. We started doing those in 2013. Funny story, me and Mike ran it in 2013, the week after my first MMA fight where I was knocked out. I don't remember working it. Apparently, I ran a tournament. I don't remember it.
You ran it that well.
I ran it that well. I don't remember. So, and me and Mike ran it. And actually, I've in the last year or so, I've kind of taken them over, and Mike's basically taught me how to do brackets because Mike is like the bracketing savant. So Mike and me are the only two people I know of that used to do this. Little wrestlers, where we would do is we'd make fantasy brackets. We'd get the old Win Wrestling magazine that have like the rankings by weight class for NCAA wrestlers, and we'd make our brackets so our favorite wrestlers would have to wrestle each other and stuff like that. Like if this guy beats this guy, then you'll have to wrestle him, but Mike's even better at that than I am. But he taught me how to like really make good brackets and everything like that. So what we do is, it's like a nominal fee compared to other tournaments. It's like $50. We do wrestling bracket style with a championship bracket and a consolation bracket. So if you lose, you can still come back and win third.
Yeah,
right?
I saw that.
Whereas jiu-jitsu tournaments, what they usually do is they have single elimination. If you lose, you're out. And then the third place is determined by who loses in the semifinals, and there's 2 third places. There's only 1 third place in our tournaments, but there's a 4th place, and you're going to get 2 matches instead of paying $120, and you might get 1 match and be done in 30 seconds, and your day's over. Also, we space, because we're using wrestling brackets, we space them out. So we'll do the entire first round, lowest to highest weight class, second round, lowest to highest weight class, third round, lowest highest weight class. So you're not having to wrestle, or you're not having to do a match. Then 5 minutes later, you're doing your second match. You're exhausted. Then you got to do your third match, and you just had a war. And then the other guy that you're going against next in the semifinals,
walk to the next.
His opponent got hurt and he didn't do anything. Like it's gonna give you a little bit more realistic view of what your skill level is too. The other nice thing about it is because in our gym, we tell people before the tournament at the rules meeting, like, listen, relax. This is a little tournament for white belts and blue belts. You don't need to scream like it's the world championships, all right? Chill out, buddy.
I scream anyway.
Yeah, like chill. Let's go. I'm talking about like coaches.
Oh.
Like chill out, buddy. Like you don't need to scream at the ref. Like I got.
Meanwhile, Mike is back there.
Yeah. No, even Mike's like super relaxed. Like he's like laughing with other coaches and from other schools and stuff. Because we like all the other local schools come and bring their students to and stuff too. Because it's just a good way for people that.
It's like an incubation chamber. It's a good place to.
They're like, I think I want to compete. I'm not sure if I want to drop $150 and spend 12 hours at the Pisa for Naga with a bunch of crazy parents screaming and their kids crying because they didn't win a sword and all sorts of other mayhem and nonsense. They're like, I just want to get in and get a couple tournaments. And that's the other nice thing is that it's over in 3 or 4 hours. Like we're not going to hold you there all day. So that's that. Yeah, we got that coming up on March 9th. And then we'll have 2 Muay Thai shows later this year that I'm still setting dates up for, and our Jiu-Jitsu Super Fight show this summer too. So that'll be really fun.
I'll be at all of those.
Oh, dude, it's gonna be fun.
I love those.
Fun. It's gonna be really, really fun.
Awesome. So to wrap it up, I have 2 questions for you. The first one: what does it mean to be relentless to you?
All right, this is gonna be really kind of lame, but just
like
basically
lame.
The dictionary version of just like don't quit, don't give up, don't stop. Like if you have a goal, and you want to do it, just keep working at it. And I mean, if it's realistic, because this just reminded me. So like really early on, like the second week, after you hired me, Warren like sat me down and like kind of like it was like a meeting. It was like kind of like a just talk about like what my goals were and stuff like that, and like and he did this purposely like to like kind of like almost like not like discourage me, but like temper my expectations a little bit, because I wanted to be in the UFC. I was like, I'm gonna be in the UFC. I'm gonna be a title contender. And he's like, listen, like you got a lot of stuff going on, and it was funny at the time. Like I didn't really get comfortable talking about CP publicly until we did that video 2 years or a year ago that you watched. That's the like little 6-minute mini doc. But he's like, listen, man, like, but he knew about it. I told him about it. He knew about CP and stuff like that. Because actually, I told him about it because he was like, hey, are you injured? Like he saw I had a limp when I was warming up, and I explained what was going on. But he's like, listen, like, I don't know if. I don't want you to set yourself up for disappointment. I don't want you to regret things that were out of your control. Like maybe UFC could happen, but let's work on being a really, really good regional amateur fighter, because that is doable for you. You can do that. And I'm like, all right, that's what I'm gonna do. And I feel like after that I did accomplish a lot of that. I mean, I'm 1-0 in Muay Thai. And then 2 and 3 in MMA, and I've had dozens and dozens of jiu-jitsu tournaments, won some pretty big ones. So I've accomplished a lot.
That's
what I want.
inspiring in and of itself, though, because like there's people who never break into the fight scene at all. You know,
and then there are those guys that are like, oh, what shoulda, coulda, yeah,
what should, and it's like you're like,
well, do
fucking,
it.
I did it, yeah,
do
like
it.
do
exactly. Like I chuckle when I hear like people talk about that. I'm like, yeah, okay, cool, man.
No, and it's funny when I ask that question. I'm gonna start asking that question at the end because like everyone has a different definition of relentless, right? Exactly. But at the end of the day, it boils down to just don't stop.
Just don't stop.
And
don't quit.
I find it funny how you said like realistic expectations or something like that.
And it was funny because like that's why when I was talking earlier about in wrestling, like I was like, I need to be a state champion. I need to be a state champion. I need to be a state champion. And it's like that kind of like. And I think like if I stayed with that mindset, like I'm going to be in the UFC, I'm going to be UFC, that would put too much pressure on me, and I don't know if I would have followed through with everything.
So, but let's reframe it a little bit, right? Like UFC champion, okay, that could be in the cards, but right now,
what can you do?
Let's focus on this, because let's wind back to when you first started as the front desk. If Warren would have told you we're going to have 4 state-of-the-art locations that everyone's going to want to flock to, we're going to have our own fight promotion, and you're going to be in charge of it.
I would have been like, dude.
You'd have been like, okay, bud. Yeah, now you're just like, okay.
Yeah, this is crazy.
And look where you're at now.
Exactly.
So, like, what did I love his mindset of, like, when he was on the episode, he's like, the growth fueled. It was the demand fueled the growth. Like,
yes, exactly.
He wasn't trying to build huge gyms.
No, exactly.
He was trying to build quality people,
exactly,
quality jiu-jitsu, and it just turned into. I'm sure this vision was in his head.
Oh yeah, absolutely. And he talked about that in his episode. The whole idea of like the reason why we keep opening new schools is we got really good people that wanna work, make this their career, and we got to find a spot for them. Unfortunately, we can't have like if we only had one school, there wouldn't be enough room for all of us. Like,
yeah.
So what are we gonna do? We can't have 6 instructors for every jiu-jitsu class.
So it's not what's realistic; it's what's realistic right now.
Now, exactly.
So that's a good way to put it.
I agree.
That's awesome.
I agree.
And then the last one: what do you wish to leave behind? Andy. When Andy's not in the room or when Andy's moved on, what do you wish, if you had control of it, what do you wish to leave behind?
I hope that I think about that almost more in like terms of like how what I leave my students with. And I want the people that I teach in jiu-jitsu, whether it's adults or the kids, I want them to be able to believe in themselves. And I actually tell the kids this all the time. I never ask them to do something that cannot be done. I will never come into class one day and be like, guess what, guys? We're learning how to fly. Like, that's never going to happen. Because like I'll get
kids jumping off the damn rack.
Well, and what'll happen, the reason is that I'll get a kid that'll come in this first day and like, okay, we're doing 4 rolls for warm-ups. And they're like, I can't. I'm like, listen.
How's my daughter?
I'm like, I taught her on her first day.
Yeah.
I taught her on her first day. Yeah.
So that was literally my daughter.
Yeah. And I remember having the conversation with her. I'm like, listen, you may not be able to do it right now, but we will get you doing forward rolls. I will never, don't ever say the word can't. I will never ask you to do something that cannot be done. And that's the same thing. Like, same thing with the adults. Like, I get like adults that come in and like, and they'll be like, oh, like, and they'll be like, oh, I'm like 40 and like, I had a bunch of injuries playing soccer in college and stuff like that. I don't know if jiu-jitsu's for me. And I'm like thinking to myself, I'm like, we got John Swisher, almost 60-year-old brown belt with knee replacement. And we
got the Crusties up here, right?
Crusties up here. He's like head of the Crusties up here. And like all those guys, guess what? They're training because they all train. They get together, train privately on Sunday mornings, not because they can't train with the young guys, but because sometimes they just want to be more relaxed with it. If they want to go and beat up the young guys, they will.
They do.
They do. Most of them are like pretty experienced blue belts, purple belt, almost half of them are purple belts, and then like a couple brown belts and stuff. And these guys are they're not. And that's the thing with Warren. He's not going to give somebody a brown belt because he's good for an old guy. He's going to give somebody a brown belt because he's good. Like,
because he's grown. Because he's shown
it, you know.
And he broke down the belt system and Mike too so well.
When I got my brown belt, I actually asked Mike about that because I was like, I gotta stripe up adults now. What how do I judge? How do I tell the difference between a 1-stripe white belt and a 2-stripe white belt? And Mike told me exactly what he said on the podcast, and that's what I use. And I actually use this other thing now too, that me and Vince were talking about with Warren, and me and Vince started using. I won't give somebody their 4th stripe if they're not actively going to intermediate classes, because you get people that they're at their 3rd stripe and they're comfortable in fundamentals and they just keep going to fundamentals. And it's almost the opposite of that blue belt that only does open mats. If you only do the beginner classes, you're never going to advance. It'd be like if you went to college and you're like, oh, I'm going to take 101 courses. Oh, sophomore year's coming up. I got to get my schedule. I'm going to do 101 courses again.
Yeah, that's a good way to put it.
They won't let you do that in college. They're like, no, you already completed that. You can't go repeat that course. You got A- on it. You're good.
Yeah, push
Keep
forward.
Keep going. You can only repeat that course if you fail it. You didn't fail. Keep going.
That's a good way to put it. So if you're looking to belt up, there it is.
Yeah, there it is. Yeah, honestly, that's really what it is. It's 2 things. It's train at the classes appropriate to the skill level, train consistently, and ask questions if you need help, and try and find the answers on your own if you don't. Like, honestly, that's what it is. And it's different. I mean, it's different for competitors, because if Christian,
they're on their own.
Yeah,
if
Christian Schaefer wasn't a competitor, he'd be a brown belt right now.
Yeah, no, I can't wait for him to come back.
Dude,
he's jumping on.
Oh my gosh, I'm a little.
He's jumping on.
He's coming back.
We're getting all the tea.
No, well, I'm scared of him coming back, because he's gonna.
Dude,
he's
training
gonna
with
murder me.
Big Dan and
I
all
know.
that. So
I know.
I had Bernardo on my podcast.
Faria?
I don't know how to say his last name. Figueroa, whatever. He's with the Gracies. He teaches like their GST.
Oh, okay.
And all that
different
stuff.
guy. I thought
different guy. No.
I thought you knew Bernardo Faria, BJJ Fanatics.
No. Dude's amazing though, phenomenal. He just went to ADCCs as well.
Yep.
But I had him on, and he was training with Big Dan.
Yep.
And all that stuff. Like, they're all intertwined. And then Christian goes down there. I'm like, dude, the world is so small.
Yeah, no. It really is. So when me and Christian, we did ADCC Dallas in June, and before then, Warren came down there to coach with us, and he called Danaher and was like, got us the okay to go train at Hoka Training Center. That's purposely to introduce Christian to Danaher, because we wanted Christian to go spend some time down there and stuff like that. And yeah, I got to train with all of them too, and it was funny. The other, you just said like really small world, was really funny, is a couple years ago, when the NCAA wrestling was in Pittsburgh, my high school coaches and one of my college teammates were looking for extra tickets. I didn't know this. They talked to a friend of a friend of a friend that knew Warren, and Warren was looking to sell extra tickets he had, and Warren sold some extra tickets to my high school coaches and my college teammate, and sold an extra one to me. And then I went and watched NCAAs with my high school coaches with the tickets that they got from my boss.
Dude,
It's so
small.
The world is so small. The world is so small. That's what I love about jiu-jitsu. It's like I go places like I was doing the Atlanta Open 2 years ago, all on my own. And I knew a local guy that was down there. I saw a local guy that was down there, and he like cornered me. What was crazier though is when I was in the bullpen warming up. This actually kind of like almost like I was like, what the heck? Felipe Andrew, world champion. He's warming up. He comes up to me. He's like, bro, are you that guy with cerebral palsy? I'm like, yeah. And he's like, I saw your video. I'm like, how did you see my video? That's crazy. Like,
are you
what?
that guy with motherfucker? Yeah.
Yeah. But it was like wild. Like, a black belt world champion came up and talked to me. That's
dude,
wild.
it's a hell of a story. I saw that video and I'm like, I mean, I knew you had a story, but I'm like, dude, that's fucking crazy.
So what was funny is Warren was bugging me to do that for a year. And John Swisher, he's like our marketing guru guy, and he helped us out. His people filmed it and everything.
It looked like a Netflix documentary.
Dude, no. His marketing team, we pay him in private lessons because we can't afford his retainer. His marketing company does Super Bowl commercials. They're awesome.
Oh, there you go. That makes sense then.
Right? But they were bugging me to do that for a year, and I was so it was like I was uncomfortable with it because I didn't want people to think like, oh, I'm a guy with CP that does jiu-jitsu. I'm like, and now I'm like, no, I've reframed it. I'm a jiu-jitsu guy that happens to have cerebral palsy. You know, like that's part of me. That is part of me, but that's not who I am.
Yeah.
You know? The other thing, and it was like also like it took a while for me to get comfortable with this. I hated getting every belt promotion I got because I was so worried that people would see it as like a
pity.
A pity, you know? Like, I remember telling Warren that early on. I'm like, don't give me my blue belt until I'm way, way, way overdue for it. Don't give me my pro belt until I'm way overdue for it. Don't give me... Like, brown belt was weird because he told me, like, a year in advance that he's like, you're ready for a brown belt, but I know you want to compete. And I'm like, yeah, I do. Don't give me my brown belt until I can win a purple belt match. I want to win matches of purple belt. And then I went and did it and got my brown belt like 3 weeks later. But yeah, it's weird that I'm able to talk about it so openly now, which when I remember growing up, I was so...
Well, you thought it was a crutch, but
I thought
in reality,
it was a crutch. That was exactly.
Yeah.
I thought it was a crutch. I thought it was like. I thought people were going to look at me differently. I thought like people were like. I didn't want people to pity me. I didn't want like any of these things that I had come up. Like I remember like I just didn't. I didn't like it, and now I realize, oh no, that's just part of who I am, and it's weird now because I remember we went to do the Nashville Open, and I lost, and I was so upset, so frustrated. And it was crazy. Warren was going out to get something from his car, and he saw this dad come in to watch his brother or son, this guy come in and watch his brother compete. And he brought his son with him. His son was in a wheelchair, had CP. And Warren came and grabbed me and was like, hey, you gotta, like, the kid was like 9 years old. He was like all there, but in a wheelchair. He's like,
that's my cousin.
I got to introduce you to him. And I'm like, dude. And then later that night, I was like feeling real depressed because I lost bad in Nashville. I think I got subbed in like 35 seconds. Hurt my knee, hurt my calf and stuff like that. I'm like, dude, I don't know why I'm competing anymore. And then Mike lays in him, like in a friendly way, lays in me. He's like, no, do you remember meeting that kid? You can't fucking quit competing. You gotta keep competing. He's like, hit me in the chest. He's like, you are an inspiration to these people. You have to keep inspiring people. So that's why I keep doing it, you know?
Well, and honestly, I was gonna end with that. Like, do you see yourself as an inspiration? Because I think you're an inspiration to me, and I like,
yeah,
you know
what? It's like, yeah, I do. It's weird in a way. Like, it's weird how to say it because I don't want to sound like, I feel like
I set you up. So I set you up.
I feel like people that like feel that way about themselves are like those like motivational speakers and stuff like that, like the self-help gurus, and I'm not like that at all. But yeah, I do. I've heard I've gotten feedback from enough people that have told me that I'm inspiring other people that, yeah, I am. Yeah.
Well, when you do the right things, good things happen.
And that's what I'm trying to do.
And I think that's what this entire organization has done. I
think that's our goal.
Look, I mean, my best episodes have been
with our people.
Our people,
exactly.
You know, like, 'cause it's the energy, the vibe, and everybody like wants to see everybody thrive.
Dude, they're awesome.
And nothing against all my other guests, but it's like when you have a community that will back you like that, like you're bound to.
Oh, dude, it's the same thing. Yeah,
endless goals.
No, I saw a little bit of success in MMA thanks to this place because everybody kept buying tickets for me. At one point I was the highest selling amateur fighter in PA in 2015 because I sold 250 tickets to a fight. Like, all from this. I don't have any family in Pittsburgh, so it's all from this.
You got a big family in Pittsburgh now.
Yeah, I do now. Now I got a big family. I got the big Stout family that a lot of people support, and I have so many people to thank. Like, if we had enough time, I'd thank every person at our school, but not enough time.
All right. Well, I appreciate you for jumping on.
Thank you so much.
This is Andy with Stout.
All right. Thank you very much.
We're out. Later.